Well, broke is broke, whether it's a company or an individual. So why would we bail out a eurozone member? Well, for more, I'm joined by Jörg Rocholl from the European School of Management and Technology. And as we've seen, those family businesses, they're clearly angry about Europe's bailout policies because they have to take responsibility for their action themselves. How would you explain the European crisis management to them?
Well, the key part is that everyone probably should be angry about what has happened so far in Greece, that there's no progress, that certain promises have been broken, for example, in privatizations, for example, in tax revenues, in doing things that can improve the overall economy. At the same time, there's still one major risk, which is what happens if we exclude one country from the eurozone? What is the contagion effect to other countries, maybe even to other asset classes? This is the key question that still needs to be addressed.
OK, but we've already seen some sort of contagion. I mean, there are more and more countries now asking for a bailout. So the strategy doesn't work.
I think that's right. So we clearly have to conclude that the strategy we've used so far really doesn't work. At the same time, I think it's important to keep certain rules in place, which is to first ask for reforms in those countries that are in danger, and first to ask for their own responsibility in dealing with the problems they currently have before any other help is given. So in that sense, it could be in principle, an easy solution to just give money and to give unlimited support, but this will exactly not help in the current situation where reforms are needed.
Well, these outraged German family businesses, they're actually making up quite a substantial fraction of the German economy. Can the German government ignore their wishes?
I don't think that the German government ignores those wishes. I think overall the government and also the family-owned businesses agree on a number of points. And I think it just comes down to this one point: can we exclude here one country from the eurozone? And this is probably just a different assessment of what the effects of contagion are. One may think this is actually less dangerous, others may think this is more dangerous. And I should also say, as an economist, it's very hard to predict.
OK, then I have an even harder question. And please, just a very short answer. When will the downward spiral end in the eurozone?
I think this will be a very long process, maybe months, maybe years, maybe decades. OK,
Jörg Rocholl, excuse me. Don't go away. We'll be talking to you in just a moment. In the meantime, we want to talk about one German characteristic that has helped keep Europe's strongest economy healthy enough to weather the financial storm, but which also is blamed for forcing harsh austerity measures on less successful eurozone economies. I'm talking about German frugality. Now, the government here is facing criticism from all over the globe for scrimping when it comes to rescuing the euro. But Berlin counters that it's unwilling to throw good money after bad. Instead, it says every country should introduce compulsory budget discipline. And what works for the German economy also works for German bread. It's all about the right measure.
Too much yeast went into this loaf of bread. It's flabby, puffed up, thoroughly unappetizing. Taking on debts is like baking bread, and the bakers in Berlin's Brotgarten shop know how to make good bread. What German customers like to buy most here is dark, whole grain bread. It's nourishing and keeps longer than white bread. For Germans, it's the staff of life. The master baker knows that good bread is a matter of proportions. His credo: bread is a promise that must not be disappointed with too much hot air. And so he goes easy on yeast, because yeast inflates. So bread dough is like the state budget. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has said that debt is the yeast of state budgets, but it's gotten out of hand. According to the IFO Institute for Economic Research, Germany has so far accepted liability for 560 billion euros for Europe's countries in crisis. What clumps up and ferments in the oven is no longer edible. Still, many are pushing to go further into debt as a solution to the debt problem. Half the world is urging that the European Union issue Eurobonds with Germany as guarantor to take the pressure off. The United States' strategy is to borrow more, and now the U.S. has twice the debt of the eurozone. Our German baker is disturbed by the orgy of debts the whole world has engaged in recent years.
If you compare it to a small trade operation like ours, we simply couldn't allow ourselves to do something like that. A few years ago, we wanted to renovate this annex here, but we decided, no, we can't do that. It costs too much.
Time to sober up. The bread dough needs a form to mold it, and less yeast. Dark bread may seem glum to some, but it's solid and nutritious. The cream puff and ciabatta days are over.
Okay, well, I actually like both ciabatta and dark bread. Well, we're back again with Jörg Rocholl from the European School of Management and Technology. What do you prefer?
Both, actually.
Actually, in terms of solving the debt crisis, some say that more yeast, i.e. more debt, is needed. Does that make sense?
Not in my view. We currently already see that the key problem we have is debt, and actually too much debt in many countries. And just to put on more of this will just undermine the credibility and the reputation of countries, of companies, also of individuals. So this, in my view, is clearly the wrong approach.
OK, but how frugal can Europe afford to be?
Europe has to find a mix. Europe has to actually first focus on reforms that are necessary to bring back sustainability in growth in the long run, and at the same time to bring back these debt levels time after time over probably a couple of months, years and decades to come back to those levels that we had maybe 40 years ago.
Well, we're talking about decades here. I know I've been asking this question before, but do we have that time?
So the key part here is that the reforms are so credible and are so sustainable that markets believe in these reforms. And I think then they are happy and willing to give credit to these reforms. But so far, the reforms have not been done in a sustainable way. And this is why there has been so much miscredit given to them.
Well, we've certainly seen that austerity and the attempt of reforms couldn't so far save Greece. How big is the danger that the same mistakes will be made with the other ailing eurozone economies?
The problems and the dangers there are severe. And the key part is now, and the key challenge is now, to actually go for the real reforms, structural reforms that so far haven't happened in Greece. Greece still suffers from a lack of transparency, too much bureaucracy. And this is something that we also need to take into account when looking into other countries. OK, one country we haven't spoken about yet is Cyprus. And Cyprus is now also asking for a bailout. The number of countries asking for bailout keeps growing. How many more will there be? So there are certainly more countries that may need the support from the European Union, from these umbrellas. But at the same time, the funds that are there will certainly not be sufficient to, for example, help Spain and Italy together. OK, Jörg Rocholl, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you.